On today's show, how has Brandon Ingram stepped up in the absence of Zion Williamson? And at this point, with such little time left in the regular season, is it worth it to bring Zion back for a Pelicans playoff push? All that and more coming right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Brandon Ingram to score more than 26.5 points? What about Evan Mobley to grab more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Pascal Siakam to dish out less than 6.5 assists? Or what about Steph Curry to make more than 3.5 three-pointers? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections made available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for everything. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Pelicans, Jake Madison, who you can follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Pelicans. Jake, the Pelicans with a big win this weekend over the Clippers. Brandon Ingram dropping 36 points to counter the 40 by Kawhi Leonard. How big of a win was this against the Clippers that puts the Pelicans just a half game back of them in the standings for that 6th seed and kind of, getting them out of that play-in bracket territory, right, to a guaranteed playoff spot?
Yeah, it's huge. If you don't need to play extra games that are do or die to get into the postseason, you may as well try and avoid that. That's a real big thing because you never know what can happen in that. And the Pelicans took advantage of that last year against the same Clippers team where all of a sudden Paul George wasn't playing after being ruled out with illness. So to get within a half game back, to have the tiebreaker over the Los Angeles Clippers, really puts them in a good spot. But it goes beyond just kind of avoiding the play-in tournament, I think. That win, with only 4 games left to go for this team, more or less, I think locks them into at least the play-in tournament and some part of the postseason. They've got a 3-game lead as of when we're recording this over the Dallas Mavericks with 4 games yet to play. That seems pretty safe to at least get a taste of the postseason. And it shows that, the play-in tournament works, right? You've still got meaningful games as we go down the stretch. So this is a lot of fun. And it's great to see a guy like Brandon Ingram playing probably the best basketball of his career as he's led this team without Zion Williamson recently.
That's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you about next, because we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about Zion, but I want to focus on Ingram here first, because earlier this season, right, first 15 games or so, he was averaging a little bit under 21 points a night. Then he has his injury. He misses a significant chunk of the season, comes back, and post-injury, Ingram's been about 27 points a night, 5 boards, 6 assists. Just exactly how have you seen him step up in the absence of Zion for this team?
Yeah, the issue with this Pelicans team all year long when they didn't have Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson out there in the lineup was offense. And it was leading to not scoring on one end and teams just running against this team and torching their defense, which has been really good in the half court all year, and just not giving them opportunities to kind of be their best selves. So over the past 9 games, you've had Brandon Ingram just completely step up, and the Pelicans are 7-2 in that stretch. They're actually 7-1 over their last 8 if you want to shorten it a little bit. And he's averaging over 30 points per game, over 5 rebounds, and over 8 assists. He's never had a career triple-double until coming into this season, and he's had 2 in the last 6 games now. He's playing the best basketball of his career. The Pelicans are getting points. They're using him more as a point forward, kind of running the offense through him, moving CJ McCollum off ball. That's caused the turnovers to drop, I think, and that means teams aren't able to get in transition and run against your defense, so you can get your defense set and play in the half court. So all of these things really work together for the New New Orleans Pelicans. Just getting Brandon Ingram into advantageous spots and letting him create for others has worked. Their offense, when they were struggling to score, was get the ball to Brandon Ingram at the top of the three-point line, let him dribble the ball till there's about 12 seconds left, and then he tries to drive and attack, but at that point it's easy to defend, and then he's got to take a contested long mid-range jumper, which he can make, but that's not exactly an efficient type of offense or the offense that you really want. So using him more as a point forward, getting him the ball a little bit closer to the paint around the free throw line, using more off-ball movement has just completely opened things up and transformed this Pelicans team. They have number one defense over the past 7 games right now, and it's no shock to me given that they're actually scoring at a high rate as well.
So, Jake, we know what Zion can be when he's healthy, right? He's a superstar. He's incredibly talented. We've seen the production. We've seen what he can do when he's actually on the basketball court, but that's been the issue through 4 seasons for him, is getting him on the court. Now, I know there's a bit of optimism, and I don't know if this is misplaced at this point, that he might still be able to make it back at some point this season, but I've got to ask you, I mean, is it even worth it at this point, right? Because you've got to imagine if he tries to come back in, right, how do you re-inject him into the lineup? You've got to reestablish chemistry. Is it going to be in game shape? He has to ramp up. Like, is it worth it to try and still bring Zion back at some point this season, be it in the first round or maybe the second round? Like, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I actually think we'll see him during the regular season. I think we'll see him at some point this week. I'm optimistic about that. We're going to get an update on his medical condition some point this week, likely on Tuesday or Wednesday would be my guess. And basically what we've heard is the next update is he's cleared to play. He's going through the ramp up process right now, going from, 1-on-1 to 5-on-5, trying to get a practice in there. So I think we'll see him at some point, assuming the Pelicans aren't eliminated, and you'll finally get to see Zion in the postseason. What that's going to look like, I'm not sure yet. And that's actually going to be the topic of my Tuesday show on Locked On Pelicans. Should Zion come off the bench, or should he get inserted into the starting lineup? And how would the Pelicans use him in that regard? But we know what he's capable of, as you've said, right? He's going to be on a minutes restriction, but even on a minutes restriction, even if you're using him as a decoy, this is a guy that demands so much attention from opposing defenses. It's just going to open things up for everybody else. You can't double team Brandon Ingram on every single play when he's out there alongside Zion Williamson and to a lesser extent, CJ McCollum. So I think if you want to try and win a postseason series, yeah, it's with playing him. And the Pelicans have taken kind of a very cautious approach with his injury history here in New Orleans. They won't play him unless he's really medically ready to go and actually 100%. So if we do see him out there on the court, I think they're less concerned. They're not really concerned about some sort of re-aggravation of a hamstring, even though those could be tricky and it really could potentially occur. But you've got to get him out there, even if it's for 8 minutes, a half, something along those lines. I think if you can do that and take advantage of those minutes, you might have a chance at pulling off a first round upset, because this team, when they were fully healthy to start the year, was number 1 in the Western Conference for a little bit. They were top 4 in the Western Conference, even without Brandon Ingram. That's how good Zion Williamson is. And if he can help you win a series, you play him.
Bit of a silver lining here with the injuries earlier this season to Ingram and then to Zion. Trey Murphy III is a guy who has stepped up in a big way for this Pelicans team. As a starter, he's averaging 15 points on 49, 42, 91 shooting splits. I mean, just what has it been like kind of seeing him kind of almost thrown into the fire, right? Thrown into that starting lineup. He's there because of the Ingram injury. Then he's there because of the Zion injury. What's it been like seeing him kind of progress through his sophomore campaign this year?
It's not a huge shock. This was the guy that, we kind of all predicted to have a breakout year for the Pelicans. They won their minutes with him as a rookie. When he was out there on the court, they were a better team. And you could kind of see that as a really good 3-point shooter and a guy that can do it in large volume, he can go out there and he can really make an impact. It's tough to space the court for guys like Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson because they're so efficient. When Zion scores at 70%, 70% at the rim, that's the equivalent of like a 45% shooter from 3. You're never going to cover the shooter. You're just going to double team Zion Williamson. But Trey Murphy's pretty close to that. And you've seen a real quick trigger in that 41-point game he had against, was it the Los Angeles Clippers? I forget whatever team where he kind of exploded, or Portland. He did that on no dribbles. They were all just pure catch and shoots with a quick release that teams have to defend out there on the perimeter. So he's a guy that just really unlocks the Pelicans offense, I think, in a really, really big way. And then as we saw during the dunk contest, There's more to his game than just 3-point shooting. He can get the ball inside. He's really long. He grew over the summer. He's closer to 6'10" right now than whatever his listed height is. He can play inside, and now that he's learning how to attack closeouts, teams know he's going to shoot, so they're really closing out hard on him. Put the ball on the court and attack the basket, and he's starting to do that and really break defenses down. It's been a really good year for the sophomore player.
He was snubbed during the dunk contest. I'm just going to put that out there right now, Jake.
Yes.
Last thing for you here. What's the latest update on Jose Alvarado? When can we expect to see him back?
I'm not sure on that one. At the game in the win against the Clippers, he's still in a walking boot, which is a little bit disappointing. So I think that means he's a little bit further out. My guess is there was some sort of setback with the stress reaction that he had to his shin. I don't know if we'll see him before the regular season ends. I really doubt that. And I doubt we'd end up seeing him in a first round playoff series as much as I'd like to see him out there on the court. Maybe if they advance and get into the second round, you'll see him there. But it doesn't appear that he's on the verge of returning like Zion Williamson is.
Will the Pelicans be able to leapfrog the Clippers in the standings and lock up that 6th seed or maybe even the 5th seed before season's end? Will we get a look at postseason Zion? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Pelicans. Jake, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Jackson.